and welcome to episode 10 of the It's Law podcast. I'm Richie Edwards from FR Law Group, and today we're going to be talking about what you should have in your insurance portfolio. I'm here with Troy Froderman, who's been an insurance lawyer and business litigator for many years. I'm also here with Peter Liefer of PrimeView as our special guest. Peter, to start, if you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your company, that'd be really great.
So I'm a father. I've got an 11-year-old boy who still gives me headaches. So what a fun. Have a great time with him.
That will change.
Yeah, exactly. So been in Phoenix for quite a while. I've owned the PrimeView for 20 plus years now. So yeah, 25 altogether.
Wow.
Yeah. So I started off when modems were, just getting rolling like this. I started off in Hawaii.
Okay.
And this phone has more bandwidth now than the entire state did.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, exactly. This thing called the internet was coming along. It was pretty exciting.
That's amazing.
So yeah, exactly. So projects we do anywhere from things that you would know. We built a website for the Department of Education for here in Arizona.
Wow.
So all the 6 million people it serves and stuff like that. We built that site. Yeah, that was quite interesting. A lot more politics involved in government than I anticipated. I don't know why. That was a good lesson.
Sure.
Notable stuff. We've done stuff for Nissan and other publicly traded companies. And these are divisions of that.
Sure.
At University of Phoenix, some other projects for them, a variety of Goodwill, some other things like that, right?
Excellent.
Our sweet spot usually is small to mid-sized companies doing everything from service-related work to e-commerce and things like that. So got a decent-sized team of kind of experts in digital media marketing and SEO and all the buzzwords you can think of and stuff like that. So it's a fun business. I enjoy it. I'm lucky. I've got a great team, and the part I enjoy the most is actually working with customers.
Sure.
Getting to understand what they're trying to create or find, then figuring out a solution that works for them.
Sure. That's excellent. And Peter, I don't think I mentioned off the top, is a surprise guest today. Came for a different meeting, and we drug him into this recording. So. We'll hopefully, teach him and everybody else something a little bit here. Troy, you wanted to talk about insurance portfolios, and it's something that I've learned is incredibly important that you have the right coverage for your business, for your risks in your portfolio.
So Troy, does this mean when I go to QuickBooks Online and I have it says buy insurance and I click the insurance thing, I'm not covered? It's like $13 to $30 or whatever. It says I'm covered for
You're
this.
covered.
Right. Well,
Is that a no? Tell me what I'm not doing. What do I have to do again?
I think you need to up your game if that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not saying I did that.
right.
Whatever.
Right.
So a client, I'm sure. Somebody
Right.
told me about it.
Friend of yours.
Exactly.
So it's really so important for a business to have a good working understanding of its insurance program. All too often we get presented with a claim from a client or a prospective client. And the first time they've ever looked at their insurance policy was right before they pick up the phone to call us to say that they have a loss and they don't know what to do about it.
Right.
And so that's really, not a very wise or efficient way to administer your risk management. So I think it starts from the very beginning, and it's top driven down. So if your company is large enough to have a risk manager, it falls within the risk manager's area to make sure that the company is protected to the extent possible. If you don't have a risk manager, then it's probably going to fall on your CFO. And if it doesn't fall on your CFO, then it's going to fall on you. But at some point, somebody's responsible for it.
Right. Okay.
So when you go out into the marketplace, you should have already done your own self-analysis as to what your business risks are. If you own a building, you know what you've got a risk there that it could burn down or could have some type of destruction of the premises or a portion of the premises.
Or the people that fall down.
People who fall down, right?
They can do that.
Right. Insurance companies love slip and fall cases.
Yeah.
So if you're a farmer, you're going to have an agricultural risk of some sort.
Okay.
Engineer, you're going to likely have, at a minimum, professional liability exposure. Same thing for lawyers. probably the same thing for your business to a certain extent. So I think what the first thing is you do an analysis as to what your primary risks are, what keeps you up at night,
Right.
what should keep you up at night that's not keeping you up at night.
Right.
It's the things that you don't know that can possibly be the worst scenario. So it's not uncommon for clients to do a request for proposal from agencies or from brokers.
Okay.
And so say you're a bakery, you have a bunch of different types of exposures. So you send out an RFP to brokers and you say, here's what we do. Tell us what you think we need in terms of insurance.
Okay.
I'm simplifying this, obviously.
Right.
And make us a proposal for what you would do and how much it would cost us to go to the market for our various coverages. So that's pretty much insurance risk management 101.
Okay.
Belts and suspenders, make sure that you've identified the risks. And we mentioned this in a previous episode, but everyone specializes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brokers have their own specialty. So you don't go to broker A and say, I want your best person on our program, and I want them to shop all of our insurance. Now, you can have a point person, but some of the folks there may have their expertise in general liability. Someone else may have it in food contamination policies. Others might have it on various different risks that you have.
Okay.
So that's a good thing to know, and it's a good thing to have that capability.
So as I understand, so as a company like ours, we have a combination of, we do websites and data stuff. So there's data risk.
Yeah,
that's the
cyber type stuff.
Cyber type stuff. Which you see like every minute.
Yeah.
Then we have the professional services. So we screwed up. When somebody screws up, there's some kind of recourse and how do we protect ourselves and that stuff. So we basically go through the business line and try to figure out which areas we would we would need coverage for, and go to not just one broker, but ideally a couple of them to make sure that we have coverage in these areas and we understand what it is. So ideally, business owner, CFO is going to do this, or if there's a larger company that the risk management person is supposed to be doing these things and gathering that data.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. And these brokers, especially the national ones, they know that they're being pitted against one another.
Sure.
And so you're going to get not just different types of coverages, but different schedules, different years, different price points, so that you can then make an informed decision.
Okay.
So for smaller businesses, you're not probably going to do an RFP, but you need to make sure that the agent or the broker who you hire knows your business. I'll give you an example that hits close to home. So speaking of cyber liability, so there a lawyer in town pooled his E&O coverage with a couple of different law firms, so they could have some buying power.
Okay.
Unfortunately, through that network, they ended up getting ransomed. So some outfit out of Russia,
Right.
The consortium of law firms had to pay like $300,000.
Okay. Get their data back, or
to get their data back,
okay,
to get their client files back, attorney-client privilege. So you can sense the
Panic.
panic, and the level of critical issues there.
Okay.
So lawyer came to me and he said, is there anything that we can do to get reimbursed for this? My share of it was X, and that's a lot for me. I'm a solo practitioner. And I said, did you have cyber coverage? And he said, no one ever told me to do that. And so, everybody, you think, well, geez, lawyer's going to be sophisticated enough but you don't know everything.
right.
So that's one where if he'd had coverage, he would have probably been reimbursed about 85 to 90%.
Wow.
Yeah. So, it didn't do him in, but it would have been helpful to have that coverage. So the questions to ask. So when we go through our annual renewal at FR Law Group with our insurances,
Sure.
we don't necessarily do an RFP, but we know the right questions to ask since we do insurance law.
Right.
But that's not true of every law firm and every business. So it's really important if you're not looking at trends in terms of what your exposures are for your business,
Right.
then if you're selling a widget, it's important to know how to make that widget. It's important to know how to protect that widget. And that's what insurance does.
Sure. We're just seeing, just to speak to the cyber thing, the rates or in terms of people being attacked, just going through the roof.
Yeah.
And so are the payouts.
Yeah.
So if you don't have it, get it.
Right. And because of that, it's expensive.
Yeah, but it's a guy sitting in Russia, like $300,000. I'll go for it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So the economics of that are disturbingly going the wrong direction. But anyway, so we have the cyber insurance. So great. So I've got cyber insurance policy. I've got the slip and fall policy. Is there anything that's obvious that I should? That's obvious to you that I would be going, oh crap! I wish I would have done that. You know,
For your business?
for any businesses in general, like in general.
Well, it's an important conversation to have with your agent and your broker.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's probably because it's so specialized to the industry. Right? A construction company might want a particular builder's risk policy or a pollution policy, right?
Right.
That takes care of things that are excluded otherwise from their commercial general liability. And
Right.
it's really very specialized, and you sort of weave together your coverage to cover everything. Unfortunately, I don't know there's a policy out there that'll just cover all your risks.
No.
Right.
There are more exclusions than coverage in the policy documents.
It's interesting you say that. So what you refer to as a slip and fall policy is a commercial general liability policy.
Right.
That's something that pretty much every company should have. And a lot of landlords require it of their tenants. So to Richie's point about, well, there's no policy that covers everything. The commercial general liability policy before 1986 was called the comprehensive general liability policy.
Okay.
And so there were all sorts of lawsuits by policyholders saying, well, I was told that this was comprehensive. They're like, no, it's commercial. It's what is bodily injury and property damage. It doesn't cover your entertainment failures or whatever. And so the industry said, we've had enough of that. And so they changed it to commercial general liability.
Renamed it.
Yes.
Got it. Yeah. Shocking.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So that's that stuff. And then when you said, so people come to you for, you guys have a specialty in insurance, right?
Right.
So people come to you and their house burned down, but that's really an area, but what did they,
with involving that?
Yeah. So I had a friend of mine who, had that happen and then realized that the payout, what they offered him was a fraction of what it was going to take to replace that. And he had to go work with, a firm like yourself to go get the difference. Right. How often does that happen?
All the time.
Oh, really? Like 1 out of 10 times or 1 out of 1,000 times or 1 out of 50?
9 out of 10 times.
Well, it's more than that. So we were talking about, there's a vast array of lines of policies, covering a multitude of risks.
Right.
But then you focus in on, one of those policies. We'll talk about your slip and fall policy that you have. So that policy will have different types of endorsements with it. And it has exclusions that apply sometimes in California, not in Arizona, et cetera. So when a business purchases its commercial general liability policy, very rarely do you get the policy when it's issued, the actual hard copy or emailed to you.
Right.
More often than not, you don't even try to read it until you need it.
Right.
And I'm saying the general business owner. And so here's a good example of making sure you're protecting your risks. Let's say you're a construction company and you hire a subcontractor to do the concrete work.
Okay.
And the subcontract that you have between you and the subcontractor requires the subcontractor to list you as an additional insured on its policy.
Sure.
And so the subcontractor agrees to that, and then no one bothers to check and see if he actually did it.
Okay.
Then there's a loss involving his work, and there's an injury involving his work. And then you tender it to your insurance carrier. Your insurance carrier tenders it to the subcontractor, its carrier, and the subcontractor's carrier says, "You're not insured under our policy." And the CEO says, "Well, blah, blah, blah. I know that we told him. Well, you may have told him, but he didn't do it." And so up the creek. So it's really important that you have somebody on your team who double, triple checks all of that type of documentation.
Okay.
Because I don't want to say it happens a lot, but if people get in a hurry, they get rushed, and you've come back, you've just negotiated the subcontract with the concrete company. You come back and said, "Got him, and I beat him down 10% on the cost." And I was like, "Yes." All right, what's next? And then 2 weeks later, there was an injury, and we need to tender it to his insurance carrier. Okay, well, you did get enlisted as us as an additional insured. What's in the subcontract? And then usually the boss will say, "That's not my question."
And you've seen this once or twice in your
Right.
34-year.
Right. And then that person has to come back with his tail between his legs and say, "Yeah, he didn't do what he was supposed to do." And then the boss says, "Well, you didn't do what you were supposed to do."
Right.
And then the shareholders say to the boss, "You didn't do what you were supposed to do."
Got it.
It's,
Okay. Got it. So bottom line is looking at my insurance, and I say looking
Right.
at the policies I have against the risk factors I have and making sure that I have. Now, one question I have is, what's enough? Right? So is it $1 million? Is it $500,000? Is it $10 million? Is it depend on the size of the business?
It depends on the size of the business, the nature of the policy, the nature of the risk. The standard is $1 million per occurrence and $2 million in the aggregate. That's bare minimum.
Okay.
And what that means is that in a CGL, if there are four
CGL
people,
means-
commercial general liability
Okay,
policy,
sorry. Thank you.
if there are four people injured and the damages are $8 million, well, you only have coverage for $2 million for all 8.
Okay.
And so that's why their companies have umbrella policies, excess policies. So it really depends on the nature of the risk, the nature of your policy. One thing that's really critical that Richie and I have been dealing with a lot is the underwriting process.
Okay.
And so the business owner hires the broker. "Here, I need you to go out and place coverage for us." The broker is going to send back, more likely than not, an application for you to fill out from the various different insurance companies. So you may have a handful. And here's what happens, kind of like the guy that didn't get the additional insured. People get sloppy answering these applications.
No.
Yeah.
Shocked to hear that.
Right.
Okay.
And so the broker, a good broker should push back, but doesn't want to push back too hard.
Because he wants to get the deal.
You're right. And so,
It's your choice, what you put down into your information.
right. So what happens is there may be a question that, did you have any prior notice of this? Or do you have any claims out there that might arise? No. And then they send the application in,
It's approved.
it gets approved, they get the insurance, they pay the premium, and then a month later, they get sued for something that they knew about 3 months ago. And so the insurance company will send a reservation of rights letter and say, I want you to give me the information on the following questions. When did you first know about this? They write back, well, received this letter 3 months ago. Then they're not dumb. They'll look at that, matched up with the application. Sorry, but you were dishonest in your application. So now there's no coverage. So nobody's happy.
How often do you see that?
More often than you
More
think.
often than you think. And that's an exaggerated example, but
So
yes.
it's like 20, 30%. or
quarter.
okay?
And so what does that mean? That means that the business owner and his team need to thoughtfully fill out the application.
Take it seriously.
Take it seriously.
Yeah.
Okay. It's kind of like what I tell our younger lawyers here. When they're writing a brief, I get it. Very few errors, meticulous.
Right.
They looked at it 5 times before they gave it to me. When they send out an email to a client,
Right.
they don't even look at it the first time. They just send it out like, hey, listen.
Never seen that before.
Yeah.
I've never done it, Peter.
No.
Right?
It's like,
ChatGPT doesn't.
right. So take it seriously is exactly the point there, because, why go through all of this effort and trying to get this coverage just to get it denied because you were sloppy?
Got it. And that can be, then you have exposure, a huge amount of exposure.
Yes.
Right. You're, we'd say naked on the problem. You're not insured, and now it's all your
And that would be
liability.
insurance. If I have multiple coverages in that same policy,
Right.
then that
You
would
could
affect
void every
everything.
single one of them.
Correct.
it's gonna sorry.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And
Wow.
you thought you've purchased, $10
Does it-
million of coverage. And you got
Does it make sense to have multiple insurance carriers or different insurance carriers? Or not really?
Not
Just
really.
be honest and straight up on what your point.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on your market, your buying power.
Okay.
There are a lot of factors that come into play. The basic answer is no. Doesn't
Okay.
matter.
Got
Get the best coverage that you can.
Okay.
Like, for example, we don't have this. We have a different carrier for our commercial general liability policy than we do for our errors and omissions than we do for our workers' comp.
Okay. That's especially given your field of expertise
Yeah.
and what it makes sense. These guys know this area better. They offer better rates or better terms. Or
I'd like to say it was that level of sophistication. It's just the broker bringing back to us what's available.
these guys are good at this. These guys are good at that. Okay.
Right. And this was maybe better coverage for a better premium from this carrier versus worse coverage for more premium maybe of
Yeah.
another
Got it.
carrier, right? So
Yeah, and so let's say that you've carefully filled out the application and it gets bound so that now you're going to be insured. Get a copy of the entire policy. Have a electronic folder wherever you keep risk management insurance and put it in there. All of your policies.
Got it.
Don't go searching for it after the loss. It happens.
Right.
Well, what happens is this, and I think it varies on the industry, but there's always a period of time where there's this huge ramp up where, oh my gosh, it's renewal time for our insurance, and everybody's bouncing off the walls and trying to get the information, and then they do it, and it's kind of like the guy that didn't get the additional insured endorsement. Everybody's like, oh,
sigh of relief.
Yeah.
God.
we have to worry about this for another 9 months, and then there's a loss, and they're like, did we get coverage for this? Let me call the broker. And that's always like one of the first, and that's not a bad response, but you should have the policies with you as well.
Right.
And so also doing a good job of maintaining your risks is a lot of brokers offer year-round advisory services as part of their representation of you in the market.
Okay.
Take full advantage of that.
Yep.
They have seminars, they have conferences, they have most of the larger ones, or even middle-sized ones, have claim advocates. And so that's a service that you've paid for when you use them to get your insurance. So let's say there's a loss, and let's say you get some type of cyber liability claim. You're in the business of PrimeView, you know what you're doing there. You're not in the business of presenting insurance claims.
No.
So you contact your broker and you say, hey, just got this claim. What do I do? They say, well, we need to put the carriers on notice.
Okay.
We'll do that on your behalf.
Okay.
We'll copy you on the notice so that there's no argument that you didn't do it.
Okay.
And then that's all done at a cost that you don't have to absorb. You don't want to, this cuts against me, but if you can have them do it, it's better than paying me to do it.
Right.
You may not need me. They may tender it and the carrier may accept it and then you're
So
okay.
big takeaways, the online marketplace for QuickBooks for insurance probably is not the best place to go looking for insurance.
No.
Sure, there's good deals there.
Right.
My CFO, we don't do that. And then the other thing is, you want to work with a good advisor, right?
Mhm.
Insurance advisor, whatever, that can help you sort through these different applications and go through the data and stuff like that. That's really valuable. That I have not had any issues, knock on wood, but I didn't know that much about it, and this has been a hugely insightful thing. One last question for you: what's the worst situation, like a horror story or whatever, that somebody happened to you that you know of, that they didn't get this managed and then were SOL?
A lot of them.
Too many horror stories to count. It's like won't mention any
Yes.
companies, but you hear on the TV, they make promises about how great they are and what they'll do, and it's typically a lot of market lip service, and they don't do that a lot. We have a case now that I'm handling primarily, and it's gonna end up, the client's gonna end up and knows they're probably in a bad position because the policy they got doesn't cover the specific risk, and then they didn't get the additional insured. This is exactly what Troy talked about. They didn't go make sure they were an additional insured on the other policy that would have covered the risk. And so now the insurance policies are both saying, well, I don't have to cover you. You're not an additional insured. And their insurance policy saying, we have an exclusion for this exact thing, and we're not going to cover you. And it's a really big loss that they might be on the hook for totally on their own, just for the simple mistake of not getting that turned into, multiple, maybe millions of dollars of we're in trouble. So those sorts of things, I think, happen more often than you would like. And it's a mistake in, like Troy said, not obtaining a copy of the policy. And then he's talking about your risk management. I don't even think it ends after you get a copy of the policy, because you then need to make sure you know what you need to do. Do you need to get additional insureds? What sort of things do you need? How do you need to make the claim? Is it every occurrence? What do you need to notify the insurance company of, so that when it comes down the line, they can't go back and say, nope, you didn't do X, Y, or Z, no coverage. So you've, dotted your I's, crossed your T's, so that when the day comes, they've got to write the check, is what you're trying to make sure you do as best you can.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's valuable.
So we've said this in other episodes, but so the insurance policy, when you get a copy of it, the part that actually provides you with insurance is less than 1 page.
Okay.
Everything else is why you don't get coverage.
Right.
Okay.
You have to meet definitions. You have to avoid exclusions. You have to be giving them timely notice. To
To the right person.
To the right person. Yeah. And what is timely notice? It's in the eye of the beholder. And unfortunately, that's always in the eye of the claims adjuster.
And then you also help on the flip side, was when I have a claim with my insurance company and it's not being taken care of. So this is another episode, right? Where you got to work with them to help solve the issue with the insurance company, or get compensated for it. So the claim adjuster said no, and it maybe is actually covered.
Well, yes, we have that happen every day at F1 Group. So there's a whole process that it entails. We put together what's called what we call a hammer letter, and it's essentially saying to the adjuster, "Hey, look, you just totally missed the coverage issue here. This is why it's covered,
right.
And here's the case law. Pay on the claim." And so we do a good job. I think our success rate is pretty good, but we sue a lot too, because you're in the business of doing internet platforms. They're in the business of defending lawsuits. They have a whole cadre of lawyers and adjusters and consultants just waiting to take PrimeView down if they have to on its insurance claim.
Nice. Okay.
That's the people with the good hands.
Right. They sell you a policy to cover you, but their business, like Troy said, is to not pay your claim. They pay your claim, they don't make money. Their business is to deny, and and they're very good at it.
Got it.
Thanks.
Okay, so I want to be much smarter about how I'm dealing with insurance and stuff like that. Something that will pay potentially millions of dollars.
Yeah,
Or
right.
save you millions of dollars.
Save you a lot of money, and it's as Troy said this whole time. It's be smart, intentional, and detail oriented from the very beginning, because you can save a lot of a heartache. Right? We prefer if you've done that from the very beginning, you can make our job a lot easier when the time comes, because we say, no, look, Peter notified you exactly how he's supposed to the right person at the right time, and he has the additional insured, and he kept his data how he's supposed to keep it, and he has his process, and this claim's a good claim you need to pay.
It's harder for them to deny it or whatever the case was. You've done. I dotted my T's and crossed my I's.
Correct.
Right.
The other way.
Yeah.
Right.
What also makes it more informed for you in terms of, do I really think I should be pursuing this insurance claim?
Sure.
Because you don't want to go into it uninformed and then start chasing after something that is just a chase with no catch.
Right. Got it. Okay. What would be great is, I don't know if you guys can do this, but have like maybe a summary of this or a list on your website of, these kind of just suggestions or bullet points or whatever. I would find it informative. Happy to share it with my team.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll have to give us our website, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. I have something put together.
No, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Troy, that's
Yeah.
about all I have. Do you have anything in kind of closing here for us?
No, I think that from the general business perspective, if you have a good risk management program, the likelihood of you getting sideways with your insurance carrier is much, much minimized.
Yeah.
Not having a good handle on it, your chances of being adverse to your insurance carrier is highly likely.
Got it.
And it's an expense to be informed. It's a greater expense to not be informed.
There it is.
Okay.
I'll put that on the website.
Yeah.
That's on the website. That's the closing
Yes.
quote.
Okay,
That's
great.
a big hammer. Well, Peter, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking time with us
Yeah.
today. It's been great.
It's
you
educational
helped
for
us.
me.
Troy, thanks.
Thank you.
And then Peter, you told us about your business, but can you just tell whoever might be watching where they can reach you when they
Oh yeah.
when they need to?
Thanks. PrimeView.com. It's a website I've had for a while. If you can Google us online and see what it's about. Then I'm Peter Liefer at PrimeView, so you can look me up that way. So any other questions, let me know. And I can tell you about insurance stuff that I just learned.
Right.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for watching. It's Law, the podcast, episode 10.